Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Warrior Soul, 5 Powerful Principles to Make You a Stronger Man of God, by Jerry Boykin and Stu Weber. Narrated by John Mclain. Suffer hardship with me, as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 3. I have eaten your bread and salt, I have drunk your water and wine. The deaths ye died I have watched beside, and the lives that ye led were mine. Rudyard Kipling. I will sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. The Lord is my strength and song. The Lord is a warrior. The Lord is his name. Your right hand, O Lord, is majestic in power. Your right hand, O Lord, shatters the enemy. Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in praises, working wonders? The Lord shall reign forever and ever. Moses, Exodus chapter 15, verses 1 through 3, 6, 11, and 18. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war, and my fingers for battle, my loving kindness and my fortress, my stronghold and my deliverer, my shield and he in whom I take refuge. David, Psalm 144, verses 1 and 2. Up front, a personal word from the authors. Boykin and Weber here, listen up. War changed our lives. War has a way of altering many things for many people. We might think first of the material damage caused in every war. For some, it's the loss of houses, lands, or possessions. For others, the damage is even more personal, the loss of limbs or other severe wounds. And for some, there's the ultimate loss of life itself. But beyond these obvious physical losses, there are other changes. Oftentimes, war has a profound spiritual impact upon people. That's our story. War sifts a soldier's belief system. The crucible of combat sorts our souls. It strips away the superficial elements of our lives and forces us to define what we really believe. Trivial concerns and pat answers evaporate like water on a summer sidewalk, while that which feeds our innermost spirits is refined like gold. Up against the heat and horror of war, faith is tempered like the strongest of steel. For me, Stu, the spiritual change began in the springtime, on a hillside in the Doc Poco Valley. A member of the 5th Special Forces Group, I was attached to the A-Team at Doc Peck, A-242, in Vietnam's Central Highlands. In early April 1970, the camp came under siege by multiple companies of 2 North Vietnamese regiments. It was there, in the trauma and uncertainty, that I first seriously considered the fact that I might actually die in the red clay of a jungle half a world away from my roots. Death was no longer theoretical for me. In fact, it was a strong likelihood. Unless you've experienced this yourself, you have no idea how facing real, literal, imminent death can alter the way you look at life. Thoughts that hadn't occurred to me for years suddenly crowded front and center. Suddenly, roots began to matter. The very potential of dying at the ripe young age of 24 caused me to evaluate the long-abandoned spiritual roots of my childhood. After some months of examining afresh the claims of Jesus Christ, at a personal level I'd never before experienced, I concluded that Christ was indeed everything he claimed to be. I was drawn deeply to him. In order to know him more authentically, I knew I had to know the Scriptures. So I made the difficult decision to resign my commission in order to attend seminary. I've been engaged in vocational ministry now for 40 years. War changed my life. I, Jerry, took a different route. I served 37 years as a professional soldier in the US Army Special Operations community, and along the way I've had the privilege of leading some of the Army's most elite soldiers. During those decades, I often found myself threatened with death in combat environments and utterly dependent upon the living God. Looking back, I consider my life a testimony to what I call the power of a 10-second prayer. Whether it was the fireball of exploding aircraft at Desert One in the failed attempt to rescue the Americans held hostage in Tehran, or a 50 caliber round shredding my chest and arm in Grenada, or facing down Noriega in Panama, or chasing Pablo Escobar, Colombia's notorious drug lord, or the hot sting of mortar shrapnel in my shoulder in Mogadishu, Somalia. Each time, I found my Lord faithful to answer my prayer. Following my retirement from the military in 2007, I was ordained as a minister of the gospel of my Lord Jesus Christ. I consider that my greatest assignment, and one that I've been uniquely trained for by my experience as a soldier. War changed my life. This book represents our desire to impart to you some of the things we've learned in our personal experiences in the military and across all of life. We're confident you'll find the book engaging, a page-turner as they say. But we didn't invest ourselves in this project of many months just to corral your interest or create a good read. Our strong desire is to introduce you to the concept of the warrior soul within you. You do have a warrior soul, you know. Here is the reality, Christian. Whether you realize it or not, you are engaged in a war. Life is a battle. Earth is a war zone. The people around you are walking wounded. And you are likely wounded too. Just as a professional soldier is not merely the average citizen, so the committed Christian, a true spiritual warrior, is not merely the average believer. True warriors are a determined lot. Fighting the good fight is no casual thing. Accordingly, this book is not written for Christian laggards. It is not written for infants seeking milk. It is written for warriors. That means it is written for thinkers. Thinkers who take the call of Christ personally and reflectively, carefully considering the application of these principles to their own actions. There's no room here for the weak-minded or the weak-souled. Be the best you can be before God. Don't look for spiritual pabulum, some easy-to-swallow Christian television tidbit. Eat the meat of the Word of God. Consume it in the presence of your fellow warriors. Find a local church, your warrior formation, that takes the Word seriously, not merely as a collection of platitudes, but as a real live battle manual meant to be read and understood, not emotionally hyped. Stick with the program, soldier. Never, never, never quit. You are facing the very real fiery darts of the ultimate enemy, the evil one himself. Every temptation to cheat is a bullet. Every temptation to shade the truth is a bullet. Every temptation to take unearned financial benefit is a bullet. Every temptation to develop an illicit, immoral relationship is a missile. Every temptation to slight your King of Kings is a major missile. The activities and choices of everyday life are made on a tactical level. The fight is daily. The trajectory of your lifetime, however, is a strategic matter. Your tactical, daily choices are made in light of the strategic, big-picture trajectory. Mission first. Live and die by your training in the finest warrior's manual ever written, the Word of God. We also have a very personal hope that this book will give to every listener a deeper and more personal respect, even love, for the warriors who have served in our nation's armed forces. It is our desire, with God helping us, to give you the opportunity to discover and forge your own warrior soul. We hope this book plays some small part in reviving the warrior soul that God Himself put inside you. Soldier on. Jerry Boykin and Stu Weber. P.S. If you're going to listen to only one chapter of this book, make it the last one, Chapter 13, The Greatest Warrior Who Ever Lived. An important note to listeners. We recognize that God has called every believing man and woman to be a spiritual warrior in His service. That being said, and firmly believed by your authors, you will notice that most of the stories and examples used in this book will have something of a male tone to them. This is in no way intended to diminish the role of our Lord's female warriors. It is the case for a couple of simple reasons. Both of your authors are men, and most of their life experience has been in the company of men. It's our hope that every warrior listening to this book, whether male or female, will experience the soul-growing affirmation for which it was written. Warrior. Webster defines the term warrior this way. Broadly, a person engaged in some struggle or conflict. Here's what we want you to understand. We believe that warrior is, at its essential core, a gender-free term. Both men and women can be warriors. Indeed, both should be warriors. In fact, boys and girls too should be budding warriors. All human beings must be warriors to some degree. It is the nature of life on this struggling planet. Your authors believe all of life is something of a struggle, a battle, if you will. Correspondingly, Earth is something of a war zone. Simply put, life is not easy. Even the good parts, such as love and marriage, for example, have their struggles. From birth to death, from paper cuts to politics, from the playground to the classroom, life is often a fight. From that first breath in the delivery room to that final gasp at life's end, we are all, males and females, involved in that struggle at multiple levels. In fact, the great apostle Paul, near the end of his days, summarized his entire lifetime as fighting the good fight. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 12. Soldier on. Chapter 1. The original Uncle Sam, and a nephew and niece or two. We are building morale not on supreme confidence in our ability to conquer, not in reliance on things of steel and the super-excellence of guns, but on things infinitely more potent. We are building it on belief, for it is what men believe that makes them invincible. General George C. Marshall. What men believe makes all the difference in the world. For America's revolutionary soldiers, that belief was freedom. Brigadier General Hugh Percy was dumbstruck. He never imagined the colonials at Lexington and Concord would have the audacity to attack his British regulars, the finest infantry in the world. But before that historic day of battle was over, his contempt for the Americans had turned into a soldier's battlefield respect. The next day, writing to another British general, he had this to say about the Americans. Whoever looks upon them as an irregular mob will find himself much mistaken. Indeed, they have men amongst them who know very well what they are about. Percy noted their perseverance and resolution, their spirit of enthusiasm. And he recalled how they advanced within 10 yards to fire at me and other officers, though they were morally certain of being put to death themselves in an instant. I believe General Percy was describing our colonial soldiers at multiple levels. Yes, they knew something about frontier fighting tactics. But on a deeper level, at their core, they knew so much more. They were displaying an inner fire as men who know what they're about. They got it. These men had asked why, and were willing to die for the answer. They were men who believed something and knew what they believed. Spiritually fit. You might call this the core of the warrior soul, a belief strong enough both to live for and die for. And it's not just America's revolutionary warriors who got it. I was seated in a stark room in Afghanistan with quite a number of young American soldiers of the 21st century. The commanding general of the US Army's 10th Mountain Division stood in front of them. Apparently newly arrived, they were about to receive their first instructions from their 2-star commander. His words were few, direct, and to the heart of soldiering. They went something like this. I need 3 things from every one of you men. First, I need you to be physically fit. We need legs and lungs in this altitude. Second, I need you to be tactically fit. The man next to you depends on it for his life. Third, I need you to be spiritually fit. Everything depends on what you believe. The general went on to invite men to talk with him personally if they weren't sure what it meant to be spiritually fit. America's Revolutionary Warriors believed in something: freedom. It showed up in the heat of every battlefield. It was the majestic core of their every thought, summarized in their Declaration of Independence. They determined to live free or die. And that concept, encapsulated in the U.S. Constitution, is at the center of the oath every American warrior still takes today upon enlistment. Where do you get such men like those who shocked the British general at Lexington and Concord? They aren't born that way. Men don't come by it casually. Such men are built, shaped, taught, and trained, forged from the inside out. It all begins in the soul, that unseen but deeply resident core. It's the inside that carries the outside. Ancient wisdom tells us that as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Proverbs chapter 23, verse 7. It's what a man believes that governs his behavior. Warrior actions are derived from the warrior soul. The best know it and nurture it. And once you have it, it never leaves. The warrior soul does not weaken. Long after the body is broken down, the soul stands tall. Unfading. I want to introduce you now to a handful of such warrior souls. At center stage in this chapter, you'll meet one of the Minutemen of the Revolutionary War. You'll also meet an elite Navy SEAL or two, along with their wives, magnificent women. And you'll meet a bronzed Bronze Age warrior, an Iron Man, before there was an Iron Age. All of them believed, and it showed on the battlefield. You've no doubt heard the saying, old soldiers never die, they just fade away. If Douglas MacArthur didn't coin the phrase, he certainly made it walk on all fours. But I was never quite able to grasp its sentiment. I could see the never die part. A warrior who believes in something strong enough to actually give his life for it will live on in many grateful memories. But fade away? That part never made much sense to me. It still doesn't. A soldier's physical prowess certainly fades. We all experience that. But the heart, the core, doesn't fade. His bench press may not be as impressive as before, but that warrior soul keeps raising its tough old head, right to the end. Most of the old soldiers I've known came close to dying more than once, and whatever it was inside them that made them true soldiers, it never ever seemed to diminish, not even at the end, when their final breath expired. In fact, fading, or rolling over or lying down, was pretty much out of the equation for them. They just didn't have a stop switch. And for good reason. How often have we seen Christian men and women stop? Now, of course, we would never use the words stop or quit. No, we're more subtle than that. But we often say things like, we just need an extended break, or last fall was such a busy season, we're going to step back for a while. Or the more apparently pious, besides, it would be good for someone else to have a shot at it. The point is this: before you stop, make sure it's your Lord giving the orders, and not your flesh. Our days are numbered, and so far as I know, we're not issued a stop switch either. The enemy certainly never rests. The difference. What men believe makes a difference. Ask members of Delta Force, or SEAL Team 6. Or, ask Adam Brown. Adam gave his life for you and me in March 2010 in Afghanistan. When members of his elite SEAL team described him afterward, a single theme repeatedly emerged. Adam had no fear bone. He had no fear and no temperance regulator. Adam's mission on that fateful March day was to have been his last. He was due to rotate home. He'd already done it all. He'd seen the elephant of combat multiple times and fought alongside the best. In fact, he was the best of the best. A lesser man would have been finished long before. After all, Adam had already lost an eye, and his dominant eye at that. He was medically qualified for a disability pension and could have been discharged. No way. No fading away here. Adam drove on. The guy had a glass eye installed, complete with a pupil displaying an Arkansas Razorback icon, his favorite college team. Adam never quit. He just retrained his remaining eye to shoot better than most men shoot with their dominant eye. He once got the ends of several fingers crushed and severed when his Humvee rolled 3 times. A teammate picked up the pieces, and a surgeon later reattached them. Not quite as good as new, since the nerves never recovered their sense of feel. But that was no problem for Adam. Stiff stumps were better than nothing. Drive on. And the warrior went back to battle. To view a video of Adam's story, visit the NRA Life of Duty website at nralifeofduty.tv/Adam Brown. Are you ever tempted to quit? Of course you are. We all are from time to time. And there is a place for spiritual R&R, but it has limits, because the battle never stops. It always rages on. Shared by wife and family. While you're watching those videos about Adam, listen to his young children describe their daddy, and have some Kleenex on hand. Phew. Adam's warrior soul gave his kids an example to follow. Listen carefully as well to Adam's young widow, the mother of those children. Kelly Brown is a woman with a warrior soul all her own. Hear the strength in this magnificent woman as she rehearses the loss of her best friend and life partner. Kelly loved her husband with a passion. Prior to their wedding, Adam's own father wasn't so sure Kelly knew what she was getting into by marrying this driven man so full of energy and a sense of mission. But Kelly would find it out for herself, and she would love him all the more. She knew full well that her husband's calling regularly took him to knock on death's door, and not lightly. So she determined that her warrior soul would strengthen his. They were a great warrior team. Kelly's warrior soul sustained her in the darkest of days and longest of months following Adam's death. Her soul was strong enough and wise enough to sort through the enormous loss of her husband. A full year after Adam's death, Kelly could say with an astonishing resolve in her heart that she had no regrets, and she and Adam would do it the same way again. Somehow this very feminine warrior knew that anything less would dishonor her husband. Only 16 months after Adam's death, Kelly would be called upon to stand beside many of her close friends, now widows themselves. Adam's teammates, all members of SEAL Team 6, the very same men who had honored Adam in his memorial service by jumping off the bridge into Lake Hamilton, Arkansas the previous spring, followed him in death when their CH-47 Chinook helicopter was hit by a Taliban RPG, rocket-propelled grenade. Also killed that day were 10 other American Special Operations personnel, 5 Army National Guard crewmen, and 8 Afghan military personnel. They'd been pulled together for a quick reaction force on a mission to rescue a US Army Ranger unit heavily engaged in the Tangi Valley of Wardak Province, Afghanistan. One of the SEALs killed in that crash was Aaron Vaughn. Aaron, too, was a man of strong belief, and it made all the difference for him and his family. 2 days after the crash, Aaron's grieving widow and parents were interviewed on national television. Billy Vaughn spoke of his son's love for God, his family, and his country. And the elder Vaughn wanted to make one point very clear. His son's sacrifice grew directly out of his son's beliefs. He felt, Vaughn told the reporter, and so did the other members of his team, that the very existence of our republic is at stake, and because of that, Aaron was willing to give his life. Aaron's mother, Karen Vaughn, added, "I am most proud of Aaron's humility and nobility, but more than anything, I am most proud of the way he loved God and how important his faith was to him. He believed America could be great again, and he fought for the America he grew up in." Kimberly Vaughn, Aaron's widow, choked back tears as she spoke of the heritage her children would derive from their father's legacy. "They will take away his love for Christ. They will take away his strength and his love for this country, and they will know what an amazing man he was." For the children of both Adam Brown and Aaron Vaughn, their young warrior souls are actually growing in the wake of their daddy's sacrifice. That's what true warriors do. They nurture those coming along. They carefully pass the baton of cause and courage to the next generation. So it is with the warrior soul. There's no stop switch. A Minuteman who refused to fade away. As we step forward in our journey to better understand the warrior soul, let me acquaint you with the most famous patriot soldier you've likely never heard of. This tough old buzzard should have stopped, even died a dozen times. And he almost did. He was a living legend in his own day, so I suppose you could say in his old age he tried to just fade away on his farm, surrounded by scores of grateful descendants. But it wasn't to be. When his country was in trouble, his warrior soul couldn't resist responding, even when he was in his 80s. This reminds me of a stack of letters on General Boykin's desk at the JFK Special Warfare Center, SWC, at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, the training center and fountainhead for all US Army Green Berets. The letters poured in immediately after 9/11. They were from retired Special Forces soldiers, and their contents were all variations of the same theme. I may have done my time and retired, but I want to be in this fight. And since I'm too old to run the rugged mountains of Afghanistan and to keep up with today's young troopers, how about if I come back to the Special Warfare Center and relieve your staff and cadre? I know you must be itching to get in the fight. You have to love that attitude. Hey, I'm a little older and slower than I used to be, but I still have plenty of fire in my belly, and I'd like to join the cause. I can see Samuel Whitmore writing a letter like that. This old soldier, long retired, loved working his fields near the town of Menotomy in colonial Massachusetts, about 7 miles out from Boston. There was something about wrestling a living from the soil that appealed to Sam. Born around 1695, he'd served as a captain of the King's Dragoons. He was already 50 when he fought the French at the fortress of Louisbourg in Nova Scotia in 1745. There he acquired his favorite war trophy, a saber he'd taken from a French officer. When asked about it, Sam, without elaboration, simply explained that the Frenchman had died suddenly. When the hostilities ended, he bought the farm at Menotomy, built a house with his own hands, and settled his family there. When war kicked up again with the French, Sam volunteered, and at age 64, he was sent to help recapture Louisbourg. The following year, he was part of General Wolfe's expedition that took Quebec from the French. Later, nearing 70, he fought in the frontier Indian Wars. He came home this time astride a much finer horse than he'd left with, and he now owned a brace of pistols whose previous owner had also, in Sam's words, died suddenly. For Sam, back in Menotomy, life was good. Having traveled far and wide, survived multiple combat deployments, and fought against enemies of varying stripes and tactics, in his senior years he was now loving life and basking in the admiration of his wife, his children, and his many grandchildren and great-grandchildren. But in the spring of 1775, Sam could see storm clouds gathering, and he was deeply concerned about threats to his freedom, both foreign and domestic. Freedom was what Sam had always fought for, and he found living in freedom to be a glorious way of life. Freedom's song hummed in his soul. He openly stated that he wanted his descendants to live in a free land, where they could govern and be governed by their own laws, and not have their lives dictated by a king on the other side of the earth. Sam knew well that freedom is never free. That's why, like many of his countrymen, he was agitated by the current.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?